Hey guys, Richard Blaine here. Thanks for stopping by my Easy Cooking channel tonight. Tonight I'm not going to cook. I'm going to take a break because you know what? I think I'm just going to have a sandwich for dinner. So I didn't really feel like cooking today, but what I did feel like doing today, because I've been asked so many times recently, is to review our culinary blade type grinds, okay, for the different kinds of kitchen knives because there are some subtle differences. And then I was asked to explain the difference between European culinary knives and Japanese culinary knives as far as the anatomy of the knife. So tonight we're going to review basic culinary knife grinds, and we're going to do Knife Anatomy 101, European knife anatomy, and Japanese knife anatomy. I hope you enjoy it. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see you on the other side. All right, let's begin our review of the culinary knife grinds. This triangle represents a saber grind or a full flat grind, which you will find on most European culinary knives. Wüsthof, Hinkle, Messermeister, Friedrich Dick, Forstner, Victorinox, on and on, Dexter Russell, on and on and on, you will find a full flat grind. This being the spine. This is your primary grind, this is your secondary, this is your cutting edge, your secondary bevel, your primary cutting edge, and the saber grind is done at a 50-50 angle, generally 30 degrees, okay, 30 degrees inclusive, 15 on each side, okay, out of the factory, okay, your standard saber grind or full flat grind, okay. The saber cut or the flat grind is the stronger of the cutting edges, but the hollow grind is more of a laser targeted cutter, a better cutter, but not as strong as the saber grind. Next, we have the hollow grind style of blade, and forgive me, I am not an artist, but on a hollow grind, you still have a spine, okay? You have a high flat, a high wall partition right here. Okay, then the blade is cut this way. This is your primary grind. Okay, this is your secondary, your bevel, and this is your primary cutting edge. Now the hollow grind, you'll see, compared to the saber, is much thinner in here, you see? Much thinner. That's why the hollow grind is the better cutter, but not necessarily the stronger edge. And it's also cut at 50-50, basically 30 degrees inclusive, 15 on each side for 30 degrees. That's basically a razor. Okay, next up is your high flat style of knife grind, either on a culinary knife or on a pocket knife, tactical knife. And once again, you have this high wall, okay, high wall, and your spine, okay, and then you have a flat grind, okay. This is your primary grind all the way to the end, and then when they grind the bevel, that's your secondary and your primary cutting edge, okay? A lot of companies found it quicker and easier to take the piece of steel, and instead of doing a full saber, a full triangle, they would just start here at a midpoint. Saves time, saves money. So you have your wall, you have your flat grind, your bevel, your primary cutting edge, 50-50 grind, basically, like I said, 30 degrees inclusive, 15 on each side, very sharp, very sharp. This is a very strong style of an edge, but not as good a cutter as a hollow grind. This is another kind of a hollow grind. It's called a concave grind or a concave hollow grind. It's a very, very steep hollow grind that, as far as I can remember, was developed by Joseph Gerber and patented by Joseph Gerber of Gerber Knives. It looks like a saber, but it's not. It's a hollow grind, see? Okay, you have your spine, you have your primary grind, which before they grind the bevel is all the way. Then they grind the secondary edge, okay, to make it even thinner. And then you have your primary cutting edge right here. This is also done at a 50-50 cut, 30 degrees inclusive, 15 on each side. It's a razor, okay? It's a... All right, now, Here we are with a typical Japanese ground knife, traditional ground knife, called a hamaguri grind, all right? They come in varying degrees of quality. Some are good, some are not that good. But basically you have your spine, okay? You have your spine. You have this high wall, like on a high flat, okay? Then you have this, technically, it's not, but technically, it's a full flat all the way to here, okay? It's a hamaguri, okay? There's a midpoint in the blade on this side called the shinogi, which we'll get into. But for all intents and purposes, basically, you have a high wall and a flat grind comes off the shinogi, okay? The back of the blade, okay, on the poorer quality knives will be flat, just as depicted here. But on the better quality knives will be concaved, like the last grind I showed you. So it goes right to here, and then right to here, okay? It's an asymmetrical grind. I've discussed this before. Whereas the European knives are a V grind, okay? 50-50 cut. This is asymmetrical. We have one grind, one angle, one grind, one angle. And they can be many degrees. They can be 0-100, 10-90, 80-20, 70-30, depending on the manufacturer, okay? There are many variations of this knife, but technically, this is your generalized hamaguri Japanese ground knife, like a sashimi knife. Okay, this is another depiction of the Japanese hamaguri ground style knife. It's my Picasso artwork that you just have to love. I mean, it's just fantastic. This is basically a hamaguri grind. It's been cheapened. It's a lesser quality than a traditional hamaguri, and it's a westernized hamaguri grind for the American market, okay? You have your spine. You have your primary back grind. Would generally be flat on the cheaper knives, but on the better ones, it'll be concave. You have your high wall, okay? And then you have your full flat grind, wham, coming right off the shinogi, the center point, okay, right to about here. And then in the infinite wisdom of some of the manufacturers, they grind a Western-styled secondary bevel right here and your primary, so that instead of laying the knife perfectly flat on the stone and sharpening it, they can raise it, people want to sharpen it, raise it a little higher and sharpen it like a European knife instead of like a Japanese knife. It's a cheapening of the style of knife. I refuse to use this kind of style of knife. All right, so let's start out. European knives are very simple, okay, in comparison to Japanese knives. Not too many parts, not too many areas to discuss. So let's just dive right in. This here is the point of a European kitchen knife, all right? Simple as that. It's a point. It's used for piercing, all right? Now, a lot of people call this point the tip, and technically it is, but a lot of people think that tip is just this much, and really it's not. The tip of a European knife is actually about 1/3 of the blade here. That is your tip. That's used for your piercing, okay? That's what you use for piercing chores, digging chores, if you even have to do that. But rarely have I ever had to do that, all right? Now, the edge is everything from the tip to the back, okay? What I call from stem to stern, okay? This is your entire cutting edge, okay? This is your entire cutting edge. This here, your primary cutting edge. This, if you can see it, is your edge grind that creates the primary cutting edge. This European kitchen knife is cut 50-50, 30 degrees inclusive, 15 on each side, okay? Now, there's another part to it called the heel. This is the heel, okay? I like to incorporate this part of the blade and this. This is the heel, okay? The downfall of the European kitchen knife is that years and years as you grind to sharpen your knife, this edge is going to climb above this heel, and then you have to start grinding this heel, and it's very thick, very heavy. You have to start grinding this heel on both sides down to match the blade. So a lot of German companies and European companies, American companies, have stopped producing many models with this heel and have basically done it the Japanese way, like this doesn't exist, and just go for all blade all the time. but this is your heel, okay? This portion from here to the point, this is your spine, okay? This is your spine, all right? Nothing else can be said, okay? This is where a lot of the strength in the knife comes from, is in the spine, okay? This part of the knife, on the European knife, this is called your bolster, okay? If you take your bolster and your heel and incorporate it, what you have here is your finger guard. You can call it a choil, you can call it a ferrule, but when you're gripping the knife, it protects your hand from sliding up on the knife and getting basically what we call a offensive wound if you were stabbing somebody, okay? So right here, this is your finger guard in here. It's incorporated into the heel, okay? And it's incorporated into the bolster, okay? Call it a half guard, call it a ferrule, call it a choil, call it whatever you want to call it. That is exactly what it is, okay? They call this at the very bottom, okay, of the heel, they call it a return, okay? This is where the heel meets the bolster, okay? It doesn't make much sense to me, but it is for what it is, all right? Now, between the two grips, the two synthetic grips, this is your tang. This knife is a full tang, okay? This is a full tang, right? These slabs of synthetic on both sides, naturally, they're your handles or your scales, okay? They can be made out of so many different kinds of things. Plastic, phenolic, G10, it's just amazing. These are your rivets. There are many kind of rivets out there. Corby bolts, Loveless bolts, standard rivets. A lot of them are press rivets. You have a male and a female end, and you press them into each other. Some of them are threaded, okay, but these are your rivets, okay? Now, there's another part of it, this right here. A lot of people don't know what this is, okay? This is your handle guard, okay? People just call it a handle, but actually what it is, it's a handle guard. It prevents the knife from slipping out of your hand, okay? You're holding the knife upside down or whatever, it prevents the knife from slipping out of the hand, okay? And last but least, right here, this is called the butt of the knife, okay? That's it. That's as simple as it gets with European knives. Now, I will throw in some background from fencing, because a knife is a knife, a sword is a sword, and basically they can do the same damage. In fencing terms, this is the weak of the blade, okay? Then from here to here is the medium of the blade, and then from here to here is the strongest part of the blade, okay? So you have to be aware when you're using this type of a knife, what you're doing. That's about the best I can do. All right, this is a differentially forged, okay, blue carbon steel sashimi knife. I don't know if you can see the Hammond line, but it's there. Differentially forged. Harder here, softer here. All right, there's a lot that goes into this kind of knife, all right? There's just a lot that goes into it. The Japanese are masters at making things esoteric. And one of the things they make esoteric is their knives. Their anatomy, the nomenclature, it's just amazing in comparison to European knives. So let's see if we can get going with this. A lot of people use traditionally ground Japanese knives and actually don't know a darn thing about them. I have cooks and chefs come into my store with hamaguri ground knives like this, and they don't know a darn thing about them. They don't know how to sharpen them. I used to make between $30 and $40 an hour to sharpen these knives by hand for itame, okay, all over town. Itame that didn't know how to sharpen their knives, and for American chefs that didn't know how to sharpen these, and they knew nothing of the landscape of these knives. But it is quite esoteric, so let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is here. Okay, all the way to the back, all the way to the front. That is referred to as hawatari. Okay, that is referred to as hawatari. Hawatari, the length, the full length of the knife. Okay, hawatari. Now, this little delineation point that I was trying to describe on my artwork, let's say, this little line right here, you have your high wall, okay, and then you have your grind. This line right here this delineation point between flat and angled is called shinogi, okay? Shinogi, okay? This is very important because the shinogi will tell you where your angle is at, okay? It will tell you where your angle is at, all right? Now, your edge bevel, okay, your edge bevel is here, from the shinogi down. Some people say it's from here down, but really, it's not. I should put this into context, okay, because your edge bevel, if you're using like a diba or even this, okay, from the shinogi to your primary cutting edge, that is an edge bevel. Now, your better sharpeners of this kind of a knife, once they are finished grinding on this edge bevel, will put a tiny little micro bevel right at the very edge, okay? So you could call your edge bevel your primary edge bevel, and then if you put a micro, and most of your better sharpeners put a tiny little micro bevel at the very edge in front and in back of this blade, okay, this is your edge bevel. The micro is an edge bevel, and this is an edge bevel, okay? It's just depends on how you do it. Now, a lot of people argue, but I will go the traditional method, okay? From here, from the shinogi, okay, to the primary cutting edge, okay, is the blade path, okay? Kariba, blade path. Once you put the secondary bevel on here, that is your edge bevel. And if you happen to use hamaguri ground knives, I suggest that after you grind from the blade path, from the shinogi down, okay, and then you work your back, that you put a micro bevel, that will be your edge bevel because you have followed the blade path, okay? It's just the way it's going to go. Now, from about the point, okay, from about the point to about here, a third of the way, maybe a quarter of a way. With the sashimi knife or yanagiba like this, there is not much of a curve. If I had a diba, it would be different. But from about here to about here is a part of the knife called the sori, or the curve, okay? This is very esoteric stuff, okay? The sori, from about here to about here. It's a belly, okay? A belly with skinning knives is used to cut in, and so forth and so on. And basically the same when you're doing fish with a knife like this, okay? So we're just going to stick with it. Sori, the curve. From here, let's go to about here, okay? About here. Now, in the back of the knife, from about here, okay, to about here, about a third, maybe a quarter of the way, from here to here. This is called hamato, or the heel, okay? From here to here. Hamato, the heel, all right? Now, this little point right here, okay? This tiny little point they call ago, or the chin. Ago. I love speaking with a Japanese accent. The chin, all right? I don't know what purpose it has because this is strictly a slicing knife, and that's fine, okay? Now, here, like European knives, this curve, okay? Choil. Choil. I couldn't find the Japanese word for choil, but it's here, okay? Choil. This little thing right here, this is made out of water buffalo horn or some other form of horn, okay? This is really beautiful stuff, okay? This is really beautiful stuff, all right? Kakumake, the collar or the ferrule here. Whereas with a European knife, your ferrule, your choil is here. With the Japanese, okay, your collar or ferrule is here. Kakumake, kakumake, all right? This is bamboo wood, okay? Handle. I couldn't find the Japanese word for handle, but this is your handle, okay? This is the handle of a Japanese knife. I said many, many terms for Japanese knives, okay? Now, here. From this point to here, okay? From this point to here, okay? This is very important. Imoto, the neck of the knife. Imoto, the neck of the knife, all right? This is a beautiful knife, okay? Now, there's a point between imoto, okay, and the ferrule, okay? Kakumake. It's called mache, okay? Mache. Don't make fun of me. I'm American, and that mache is a little space right here, okay, where my chopstick is going. This is the sign, actually, of a superior knife. People go, oh, dude, the handle of the knife isn't up to all the way up to the tang. Oh, no, it's not the case, okay? This is a Japanese knife, not an American knife, okay? This is a Japanese knife. Mache, okay? This is the distinction of a superior blade right here, okay? Now, in European knife terminology, we call this the spine, okay? We call this the spine, okay? In Japanese, they call it mine or mune, the spine, M-U-N-E or M-I-N-E, mine or mune, okay? It's a beautiful piece of work. And then finally, right here, okay, from about here to about here, kisake, the tip, kisake, the tip, okay? That's it, okay? There's a lot of parts, there's a lot of language, there's a lot of nomenclature with a Japanese knife, but there it is, okay, guys? Hey guys, Richard Blaine here. I want to thank you for stopping by my Easy Cooking channel tonight. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial on the basic knife grinds, and I hope you enjoyed the tutorial on Knife Anatomy 101, Japanese knives versus European knives, nomenclature and anatomy. It's a very interesting subject, and if you use these tools, you should be familiar with this, okay? Because you might end up in a situation where you go to take a stage someplace, like I've had people take a stage with Morimoto, and Morimoto goes, "Yeesh, tell me about this knife," and they go, "Oh, it doesn't happen." So I want to thank you for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. Stay tuned. Next week, I'm going to make a pasta dish that's not Italian, and you're going to love it anyway. I want to thank you for stopping by. See you on the next video. Take care.